For the next 30 minutes, I just want to really give you guys the chance to talk about your experiences at Zeta, and talk about potentially how your identity really like builds into your work, right? So let's get us started. How about everyone go around and introduce yourselves? I will go ahead and call on people so we're not awkwardly all waiting for someone to talk. But I'm going to introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about what your role is at Zeta. Tell us as well a little bit about like how long you've been here, maybe why you chose to come here, and also talk about how you identify culturally. All right. So Anna, if you don't mind, we'll start with you.
Yes, absolutely. My name is Anna Collado. I work at Zeta in Wood One, the one that's located in 187th Street. I am the pod leader right now, which is really exciting. I identify myself as an Afro-Latina. And what was the follow-up? This next question, Andrew?
Yeah, just talk a little bit about like, and how long have you been in Zeta?
I've been at Zeta. This is my second year now with Zeta. And, I chose to come to Zeta because I truly believe in its mission. I believe in the social emotional whole child approach. And here I am,
Awesome.
year 2.
Fantastic. Great way to start. Thank you, Anna. Letty, go ahead and introduce yourself.
So my name is Letty. I identify as Afro-Latina also. This is my second year. I am a head teacher, kindergarten head teacher. And I came here to Zeta because when I had my interview and before my interview looking Zeta up, I really, really loved what Zeta was doing and the plans that they had. And I love that they were planning on growing because we need schools just like Zeta that are able to fulfill students' needs in all levels, just like Anna said, as a whole learner. And that means not just academically, that means social emotionally, that means cultural. It's a lot of things that Zeta does provide for our students.
Yeah, thank you, Letty. Awesome. Gabby, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Gabby Giraldo. I'm the Operations Associate for Inwood 187th. I started my journey here at Zeta in January 2020, and I recently graduated from Barnard College, and Zeta is how I'm beginning my professional career. And really what drew me to Zeta, I think everyone definitely touched upon this, was the holistic view on the child. And I think going a little bit deeper than that, Zeta and identifying as a woman of color and as Latinx at Zeta has really pushed me to ensure that the organization as a whole continues to strive for inclusivity and accessibility. So really a lot of my day-to-day work, operational workload, ensures making sure that any resources, any services that we provide for families are accessible and reasonable.
Awesome. Thank you. Juan, last but not least, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Juan Gomez Jr. I work at Zeta Bronx 1, which is located in the South Bronx. I am the founding operations director in this building, so I've been in this building for about 3 years now. What kind of drew me to Zeta, first and foremost, was like the social emotional learning aspect for that, the heavy focus on that with the students. Prior to this, I was working at other charter networks, which had a different approach. So this was like a big shift in the focus in that sense. And yeah, I mean, being a Latino, I think it's super, super helpful when helping out the families. There's a big population of Spanish-speaking families in our communities. And unfortunately, there's not always, enough staff members around to kind of support those families. So definitely being here gives me a great sense of fulfillment and kind of, being around to support them.
Awesome. Thank you for that. I should also quickly mention, I forgot to mention at the beginning, out of like the 15-20 people who are here with us, if you have any questions during the session, feel free to request any questions and using the Q&A function down below. If that doesn't work, try to chat me. I will get your questions somehow, some way. But I have a few questions prepared. I want to take a big step back here. So not even taking into account like what you do on a daily basis, why education in general? Why is working in education equity what you all have chosen to do? Letty, we'll start with you this time, actually.
For me personally, I forgot to mention I work at the Inwood location 187, but remotely at the moment. For me personally, education comes, the earliest idea, memory I have around education is my family. My mother is a teacher. I have family members in the Dominican Republic who are teachers. I have my generation, so my peers, my cousins, my friends, lots of teachers. So it was, and from the moment that I even knew what teaching was, I wanted to be a teacher. I remember we had an assignment for kindergarten, and it was to take pictures with the community leaders. And I didn't even have to leave the school. I took a picture with my principal and my mom, which was, I was attending the school she taught at. So education is like really rooted in the core of my family. My mom, no matter what, has always pushed us to make sure that we strove for the best, that we made sure that we always finished what we started. My dad, even if he didn't finish school, he was always making sure that we had whatever we needed. When it came to my time, I was pretty sheltered, so I wasn't allowed to go away for school. But when I did finally ask, I was like, okay, I did my 2 years here. Can I finally go? My dad, begrudgingly, my mom was like, no, but my dad begrudgingly was like, okay, you did your 2 years here. So he was always making pathways for us to making sure that we did whatever he had to do to make sure that we were successful when it comes to our education. So education for me is huge. There's really no other path I would have taken. I think if I wouldn't have ended up as a teacher, day-to-day teaching, I probably would have been a professor. So I would have still been in education. So education, I don't know, it's just, and I consider myself a lifelong learner. If I could be paid and not have to be a student, I mean, I'm a student now because I learn every day, but if I can pay to be a student with no exams, that would be my job.
Amazing. Thank you for that. I saw a lot of head nods from you, Gabby. Do you want to share what your education next?
Of course. So a little bit of resonating with Letty. My mom is actually a teacher in Chicago, has been in education for about 15 years already. And growing up, working in education, I never really viewed it as an option until I got to college and I started immersing myself in different pre-college programs and mentorship programs, which allowed, again, to create better access to elite universities and any resources that the organizations that I work for would provide. But truly, at the end of the day, a lot of my morals, a lot of my identity really comes from education. Education was something my parents definitely strived for, was a priority for them from the beginning. My mom was fortunate enough to finish college and graduate, get her degree. My dad didn't, but they were still very supportive forces in my life, and motivated me, provided anything I truly needed in order to be successful from pre-K all the way until college. So definitely have to hand it to them for this great opportunity that I'm a part of now.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Why don't you share? Why is education your profession of choice?
Yeah, so working on education, working in an operational role, it honestly kind of allows me the flexibility to kind of pursue my passion in operations, but also to fill a role that is extremely rewarding in just being there for the kids. Kind of my schooling experience growing up, I didn't have too many staff members at the schools that I was at that, were those of color, let alone male figures. So I think, and particularly being a male figure in a school building in the South Bronx, I think is extremely important, for everybody, but more so particularly for the younger boys, growing up. and then having somebody to look up to, an adult of color as well. So I think that was something that I kind of, wish I had when I was growing up, and so with my friends. But just having that sense of joy to kind of be there for our students as well. And thinking about similar to Letty and Gabby, my mom has also been working in education for about 20 years now. My parents migrated from Dominican Republic as well. My dad, because he had to support his family, only got up to like 5th grade in Dominican Republic, so he never finished school at all. My mom up and left what she was doing and was fortunate enough to, at least get an associate's degree when she was here. So my mom was definitely in my ear about working at schools and the benefits of that, growing up, which I always kind of was on the fence about, but I'm definitely glad that I ended up here working at Zeta.
Yeah, that's awesome. Wow, so many family connections. I did not realize that. That's awesome. Anna, why education for you?
Yes, absolutely. My experience and my background is a little bit different. I do not have family in education, but I did have a very challenging experience growing up in education. My family immigrated, immigrated from Dominican Republic. So the language barrier was extremely challenging. For my mom to be able to communicate with my teachers, for teachers to give resources to my mom, just in general, it was a huge, 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 huge gap there. So that's one. I grew up just thinking like, that truly did affect, let's say like it affected me in many ways, right? And I could have just been helped in many ways had the language barrier not been there. So I definitely growing up made it my mission to ensure that as in education, as a teacher, which I was prior to a leader, the language barrier was never an issue. And that is like my mission every single day, to ensure that the language barrier does not get in the way of any of the opportunities that we have for our children. I also deeply believe in just equity in education, right? Like your zip code, your area code, your location, the demographics, it should not impede or should not define the resources that you are given. So truly, like everyone, I'm a true believer that everyone has to be given equal opportunities and accessibilities. So that is definitely why I chose this path in education. And of course, representation matters, So that is another huge factor.
Yeah, so actually, you prompted 2 new questions in my head, so I will give all of you guys the chance to answer either one or both of them, whatever you choose. So you mentioned 2 things, one of which is why it's so important. You said it's so important to have people who speak your language in your school, right? You also at the very end said representation matters. I definitely have thoughts on both these, but I'd love to hear your thoughts. So why? Why is it important to have somebody at your school who speaks your language? Why is it important? Why does representation matter? I'll let anyone kind of jump in if you guys have immediate thoughts. I'm not going to call anybody this time. Or maybe I will call on somebody. Gabby, you're laughing. You gotta go.
Lovely. I think before addressing the language barrier, I think it's always really important to go ahead and assess the needs of a community. And within the needs of the community, it's really truly analyzing, is that language barrier present, and how can we make it easier to communicate with families? Because the more that we listen to our families, the more that we listen to the communities that we are serving and working with on a daily basis, the better relationships we can create with these families. And again, as just working in the Washington Heights / Inwood area, Spanish is the predominant language. And I think it is really a push for those who are working within the community to have that flexibility in the language. It's not easy, but it truly makes a difference. And you can really hear the gratitude from our families when they are finally able to address their needs, their concerns, any questions that they really have, especially during COVID. Having their questions answered during this difficult time is really something that they can rely on, making sure that they see a friendly face and see someone that actually looks like them. Again, just helps forge and helps unite the.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Gabby.
Yeah, I think Gabby made a good point mentioning the community. I think about like the psychological aspects of representation, right? So as a family coming into a school building, first and foremost, starting with the parents, it kind of gives you a better, as a parent walking and seeing somebody that you kind of can identify with, it gives you a better sense of trust. Obviously not to say that you can't trust any, other staff members, but it kind of helps break that barrier a little better. And for the little kids, they may not notice it directly, but subconsciously, that's something that kind of, goes along with them as they pursue their academic career. And some of the obvious points, such as like the language barriers, work an operational role, and even just the normal conversations, day-to-day simple conversations, that they always can't really communicate with, if you're a Spanish speaking family member, you can't really communicate as well as you may want to with only an English speaking community person. So I think overall trust, and honestly, it does just give, again, going back to like my point in my schooling experience, it just gives you somebody to look up to in that sense. I wasn't, growing up in my experience in that, I didn't necessarily think about working in schools or anything like that, but I did, thinking back on it, would look at, what are other Spanish, I guess, male adults doing, and, what are they doing, and try to pursue those fields. But had somebody been at the school level, then I think I would have definitely approached that or thought about that differently.
I think Juan and Gabby touched upon very important things, and Anna also earlier. Representation is huge and super important, because if you don't see people around you at different levels, at different places, you don't see yourself. You can't really imagine what your future looks like. There are so many things that I didn't know that were available to me because I didn't see people like me in those places. And even doubly, being an Afro-Latina, you don't see yourself anywhere really. So it's just like, if there is a Latina, they don't look like me either. So it's like, where do I belong? Who do I belong with? Where do I stand? And I'm a firm believer, if you know yourself, you have all the tools, the doors become a lot easier to open. They don't open right away, obviously, but they become a lot easier to open because you know yourself. You are anchored. So you know where you can go and you know how to maneuver. So representation for me is huge. I love, love, love seeing all of my Latino kids, all of my Black and brown kids. I love seeing them. I love being able to teach them. From the moment that I joined the team, I remember when I had started off being a part of Bronx team, and then I switched over to Inwood team. And we had our like one of our first like mini circles, and I was like, I cannot wait to be able to teach a little Leti. That's why I do it, because I want to be able to teach the students that look like me, the peers that I remember vividly from my childhood. I know the needs that they had, and I know that I want to be able to provide help and provide be a service, so that the gap becomes less and less and less. Because I definitely saw it growing up. I am part of this community. I am Dominican. I didn't grow up in this community in particular. I grew up in the Bronx, but this is second home. This is the Heights. This is second home. So I definitely know I am part of the community. So representation for me being just standing here, and like Gabby had said earlier, just standing here with a parent being able to see you. They don't have to say anything. They don't have to utter a word. You can see it just in their face. It's just like, oh, I'm home. I'm comfortable. I can speak to this person and they can understand me. So representation is huge, and that just goes hand in hand with the language. Obviously if there is a person who speaks the same language as you, you are able to communicate better and get you the needs and be able to fulfill your needs. I know that growing up, we didn't have a lot of resources, and I know that if we don't provide it, we have a key to it. So us being able to speak Spanish is huge to help these families.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Hannah, do you have anything you want to add?
I mean, everything was said, everything from just the needs of our community to listening, knowing, being able to relate, right? Being able to say, you know what, like, I got you, right? Like, I've been through this before, or I know your struggle and we're in this together and I'm going to make sure you're successful. Like, all of that goes a long way. Um, we are like breaking barriers in education. And I think it is extremely important for us as a team to continue to do that. I think it's extremely important. Like, I want to go back to representation, right? Growing up, I didn't have many teachers of colors, right? And the messaging that said to me is like, can I be successful, right? I don't have anyone that looks like me. So the messaging that we're sending to our students daily is that you can do it, right? And I'm going to make sure that you do it. You will be successful. You are beautiful. Your skin is beautiful. Your hair is beautiful. You are bright. Like, you will make it far in life. I think what we do is so important because we just don't only teach what's in the books, right? We teach them about themselves, about their identity. And all of that goes a long way. That is what I mean by teaching the whole child, and the whole child approach that Zeta has. It's not all about passing exams. It's not all about getting 100%, right? It's also us developing the children, developing their mind, and developing their identity to be successful.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much for that. We have a couple questions from I guess the audience. So we're going to jump to those. The first question, and I love this question because it's going to get into some intersectionality. So, over the past several months, as a Latinx person working in education, what have been your biggest takeaways from the Black Lives Matter movement and the racial awakening around the country? I'll give you a second to kind of think about that. But if somebody wants to jump in, go for it.
I'll take a quick stab at it. I think initially, some of the bigger takeaways is, first and foremost, we're all in this together, right? It doesn't matter what color your skin is. It does not matter at all what your background is. This is a fight for the entire race, right? It's not just specific to one demographic. So with that said, I think it does show us like what changes can really happen when you do come together as a community. And with that even said, it's not enough. We still have to continue to push. It's not just a Latino thing, an African American thing. Us together as a community, it's something that we have to continue to push and fight for just against the fight against racial injustice, just equality all across the board.
This automatically makes me think, and it's something that I, as a leader, like, we had to just quickly get involved with, right? Like, this, like, we are in this, like Juan said, together, but like, we are dismantling racism, but that also starts in the classroom, right? That also starts with what we teach our students, and our approach in our curriculum, our approach in the education, and what we provide our students with daily.
So there was a lot that during these few months that I've had to contend with, that I've had to go back and forth with within myself. As an educator of Black and Brown students, I had to rethink, how do I want to show up in the classroom? Because it's important to me, like as we've mentioned about representation, it's important to me that my students are clear about who they are, and clear about be able to be proud of who they are. So a main takeaway I took from the Black Lives Matter movement in the last few months is that it is up to us as educators. We're setting the foundation of what what our generations will look like. As cliche as that may sound, as we hear it all the time, it's a huge burden that it's not a huge burden. It's, yes, of course, it's a burden, but it's an important job. So we have to make sure that we are very clear, that we are very intentional in the way that we teach and the way that we show up for our students. They need to make sure that they know that they are safe, they are loved, and that they're important. So that's what I try to transmit in my class every single day.
I think one of the biggest takeaways for me was to listen, truly listen again, going back to this aspect of being very community driven, it only showed that we have so much more listening to do, especially with any parent-student interaction, knowing that we need to listen to their needs, knowing any desires that they want in life. Because maybe at the end of the day, we weren't given that same opportunity to be heard, but we want to make sure, again, that this generation that we are teaching, that we are serving, is being heard, has a voice, and knows that they have the space in order to actually voice their opinions. And again, just knowing that this is a constant fight. This is not new. This is, again, a work in progress. And every year, every day, we need to go ahead and make sure that we are very intentional with the words that we are using with any interaction within our community.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, that's a great segue into our very last question, also from the audience, which was, how has Zeta created an environment for staff members from all let me rephrase the question a little bit. How has Zeta created an environment for all staff members from all backgrounds, so they feel like they are being included and that they belong? Yeah, I think that's a great last question to end on. So once again, if anybody has a thought, go ahead and jump in. We have about 5 minutes left.
I'd like to bridge the last question with this question. I think Zeta does a great job at, well, with the events that have happened around the Black Lives Matter movement, I've always felt pride in the approach that Zeta has taken. I feel like many times companies take the approach of, if you'd like to talk, we're here, or in case you'd like to, Zeta said, no, we're gonna make sure we make space, not just one event or just one meeting, or no, there's conversations, there are professionals that come in, they make sure that the platform is set up for all of us to be heard, to be able to speak up. There will always be someone at any corner to listen to you, to make sure that you have what you need. It's super important to me as an educator and as an employee that my leaders, that the place I work for really does listen to their staff members, really does take into account their day-to-day struggles. If there are changes that happen in the school, it's because we have been able to speak up. They give opportunities for us to be able to give feedback. So it's super important to me that this is the environment that I can thrive in. So I'm really glad that I'm here, because Zeta does try to make sure that we are heard, and that they don't just stand over, or they don't just hover over the umbrella of like, oh, we're diverse or anything like that. No, it's like they talk the talk, they walk the walk.
Yeah, I think Letty pretty much hit it right on the head. Just Zeta kind of creating that space for us to talk, to be open, to do, be part of these, professional development sessions that help us kind of, create that space for us once again. And I'm also thinking about this from like, when we say all backgrounds, we literally mean all backgrounds, right? I'm thinking about it from like a psychological aspect, those who suffer from like mental illnesses or things of that sort. The first thing that immediately popped into my head during this pandemic and working remote for close to half a year almost, or probably even more, is, Zeta gave us free Headspace accounts. They do, again, not only just walk, talking the talk, they also walk the walk, kind of what Letty alluded to. So just doing all these things to help benefit everybody. It doesn't matter what you are going through. And sorry for the background noise, but it does not matter what you are going through, where you're from, literally anything that you are experiencing that is kind of a bit of a challenge. Zeta is there to listen to you and to offer literally any support that they can, and they've truly been doing that for each staff member.
I think Letty and Juan definitely hit every point, so I don't want to go ahead and be too repetitive, but I just have to say that Zeta has definitely done a good job and is continuing to do a good job of, again, listening to any needs, any concerns that may arise. And again, like Letty said, making space, because there's a difference in terms of just voicing opinions and concerns staying there, but there's also that next step where you need to go ahead and make space. And again, truly with the DEI training that was being done, with additional resources like Juan said, Headspace, and also Rosetta Stone, addressing that language barrier, really motivating staff to go ahead and make sure that Spanish is a priority, that Spanish is a priority within our organization, truly shows that they are, or the organization as a whole, is listening to any needs and concerns. And it makes it a lot easier to go to work every single day, knowing that any concerns that I may have for my operation leaders are going to be heard.
Yep, absolutely. And I just want to provide some examples, right? Because I think it's really important to know, which is why I think it is so special. We, like Letty said, we talk the talk, we make changes fast. And I think that's the one thing that I truly appreciate from diversity, equity, inclusion, from DI training to, any surveys to make sure that their staff members are doing right. Our doors are open, our lines of communications are open, from teacher's leader to the CEO, if you would like to talk to the CEO, right? I'm thinking about Emily and her listening tour, getting to know teachers and teachers' concerns, so we can act quick to make sure this is a safe space for everyone. Something I also appreciate is just our referral process, right? That's something that I remember my first year here, Andrew, I sent you 11 referrals. I have friends, I have family members, I have so many people that belong here at Zeta. We have that opportunity to bring everyone along and make this just a safe, the best working environment and positive environment, which is extremely important.
Yeah, we were at the time. So, and you wrapped it up perfectly, exactly what I was going to say, which is if you or anyone you know is interested in joining the Zeta team, feel free to email me or just find us on our website. Anything that you click on will probably lead to my inbox anyways. So I also will say, I will never say that Zeta is an easy place to work. I think that it's a very challenging place. There are moments, but working in education should never feel easy. It should never be an easy job. This is very hard work that we're trying to do. And so what I always say is I encourage people to find the place they want to do that hard work with, right? Find those people you want to work with, find the team that you really want to be on. Our team is a team that's working really hard to do incredible things. And we're looking to grow. So thank you guys all for coming. I really appreciate your time. I'm 2 minutes over. Apologies about that, but I'll let everyone go. Enjoy your days. We'll talk later. All right.